if I just wanted to make like $1 million a year and that's it, and that was my only goal, I would become a farm. I would just batch my content. I would have an info product on the back of that. I would build out my lead magnet, lead gen, funnel machine. And I would just become this annoying asshole that's just like getting people into my machine, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I see why people do it. I'm like sometimes enticed. Should I be doing this?
You know why the like content farm info product thing is a bad idea? Because when you see something like dope and like the hairs on the back of your neck stand up and you're just like, this is sick. The hairs on the back of your neck are not standing up when you're selling a course for $299. When someone interacts with something you made or watches something you made and the hair on the back of their neck stands up, that's sick. Like that's what it's all about. The resilience of builders has gone down over time because they've been exposed to enough winners. Like we were saying, in 2008 when Uber was created or Airbnb was created, they didn't have a lot of winners to look at to like warp their mind. You have a lot of projects going on. And you just had a daughter as well. And so I feel like that just compounds the like, there's so many things pulling you in all these different directions. I wonder like if you could share just like now that, how old are your daughter? Like 3 months or so or a little less?
3.5 months. Like if anybody out there has like kind of been following my content since I started at the beginning of the year, I would say the first 7 months of the year, I was just cruising. Like crazy, just getting through. I was probably averaging a video a day, maybe even 2.
Your output was wild.
And my output was wild. I was putting content out on everything, including like all my media brands and like while working on like 3 different projects, and I was able to handle it. Then when my daughter was born, man, my output is just like plummeted. But a lot of that has been deliberate. Like I just want to make sure that I told myself, all right, the rest of the year, first 5 months of her life, I want to be there every single moment. So a lot of that was like obviously deliberate. But yeah, that's the one thing that I've been telling a lot of people is that the one central message that I've learned is having a child really makes your life 10 times more challenging, but infinitely more rewarding. I really believe it's the pinnacle. I don't think there's anything better in life. So, but yeah, I mean, so my output has definitely declined, but I'm ready for 2024 to get right back at it.
And is that how are you looking at it in terms of like because when you went into it, you were probably thinking, okay, I'll be able to juggle like whatever, like I always have, right? Like I'd figure out a way to balance it. And then your daughter comes, you're like, okay, this is not only is this the most important thing, but I actually want to spend all this time with her. And so I'm willing to like take my foot off the gas. But then in the back of your head, at least for me, it's like I have this like nagging switch that's like, okay, get back on it. And so when you think about, I'm sure you have that too. Like when you think about that, what is your plan in terms of like, okay, now I have less hours of the day, but I want to do more with that time. So what are some of the things that you feel like are going to be little hacks or kind of like shortcut cheat codes that you're going to try?
Well, I mean, there's a few things there. And one, I really want to get into that with you too. Like thinking about the stress of not kind of stressful, like the nagging pressure of being a creator. Right, like always, I found myself, man, like I spend so much time in the ideation process, just thinking of ideas, putting together scripts, like sort of in my head. And when I'm not uploading consistently, I do feel this pressure, and I hate it, right? And I feel like every creator can kind of relate. But to sort of answer your question, then I really want to get into it with you too, because I know you've been going on like long trips. I think you went to Japan for 10 days. Like I want to hear about how that affected your sort of psyche when it comes to the creator stuff. A lot of it, honestly, I just think is just parenting stuff, right? And so my wife, Carly, and I, we've been having this discussion where she has like a really cool job that she loves. And I'm obviously super, super busy. So now it's like, okay, do we get a nanny? When does that happen? Do we even want a nanny? Do we want to maybe recruit like one of our moms to kind of come full time and maybe move them into the area, maybe get them an apartment? I mean, like there's all these questions going on, but I think like childcare is like part of the equation, right? Which is something that obviously we're super new to. So we got to try to figure out how to reconcile that. But also for me, it's kind of, cause I'm a creative sort of at heart. Like I feel like I'm a bit of an artist at heart. So for me, I need like a 6-hour block to work. I can't like, I'm going to work 20 minutes here and then I'm going to go take care of the baby.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Then I'm coming back for 10 minutes and I need even emails. Like I don't answer emails when they come to my phone. I need to be like sitting down at my computer, iPad, whatever it is, and having like a time block to thoughtfully respond. That goes with my writing. That goes with my content creation, everything. And so that's been a problem for me. I don't know if it's the same for you. Like how do you need like an 8-hour block?
It's the exact same. It's the exact same. And my wife is actually, so she does management consulting and she's like a machine to the point where when if she has like a 30-minute block, she can turn it on immediately and like use 28 of those minutes extremely productively. And then
Crazy.
at the 30-minute mark, turn off and be like, all right, I'll pick it up. She's so good at that. I can't do that. Like
Yeah.
I need, it's like, it sounds woo woo of like, I need to get in a state, but it's more just like, you need to, it takes 45 minutes to an hour to shift your brain fully on, at least for me, to like shift
Yeah.
it fully on to whatever topic I'm doing. And then I want 3 hours to like go down the rabbit hole. Like the best stuff is at the bottom of the hole. So if every 20 minutes you're just like coming out, you just never go low enough to find the goal. So yeah, it's a struggle for me too. That's why I try to like block my days. So as soon as I wake up, I take care of all my health. So like I do the gym right away and
Oh,
I
I
get
saw your
food
tweet
in.
on this. I saw your tweet on this. I wanted you to expand on this because I think you actually have it. You got it unlock. I want to hear more about it.
Yeah. I have a good flow, but that's the thing is like we're probably gonna have a kid in 2 years, and then as soon as you have a kid, it throws all the schedules and routines because
Forget
you're just
about
like
it. Yeah, forget
yeah.
about
Then
it.
it's just
Yeah.
like you're a firefighter. That's like you just become a firefighter. So for me right now, it's kind of like the most important thing in terms of like I think about priming my brain and body. So it's like if I want to get the most out, I have to prime myself. Like if I don't sleep well, I don't have caffeine, I don't eat. The systems are just running on like 70% capacity. So I kind of figured like to get them to 100, what do I need? And like my body personally just like craves exercise. So if I don't work out in the morning and I'm trying to like not, I don't really do the meditation. I do a little bit of breath work and I work out. That's it. I try not to have this like 4-hour routine. But once I get home from the gym, my brain is like turned on and
Yeah.
I'll shower and I'll end it with cold water. And so as soon as I come out of the cold water, I'm like, all right, let's go. And I usually sit down around like 10, I would say 9:30 or 10, depending on how early I can get up. And then I've got that block from 10 to, I'll go get coffee at like maybe 12:30, but that's the only break I take, 10 and like 6. So that's really helpful now. And like I said, my wife works. We only have a dog, so he can lay there for 6 hours without like the attention. So it's so much more helpful. But that's one of the I think like when you become a parent, I'm guessing obviously it's like the best thing in the world. You would never trade it ever. Like you're just like this is the pinnacle. But before you're a parent, like where my head is now, the one thing that's like holding me back from doing it right now is just like, can I make the most out of this, 9 to 18 month window I have before everything gets chaotic? And maybe I'm being too short sighted and like the trade off is still not worth it. Like I should just have a kid right now. So that's why I'm curious to hear from you, because of course, like the backdrop, you would never trade it. You would never ever trade it. But like most people don't talk about the struggle that you get in those first 12 months of like the push and pull mentally of wanting to hang out with your daughter, wanting to work, not being able to do what you want, and like the stress on you.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you first of all, like what you said is so true. Like now that I talk to like especially younger dudes without a kid, I'm like, go out there and dominate the world right now. Just because when you have a kid, like, and by the way, like having a kid is incredibly challenging. Because you're like, if you're a good parent, like having a kid is a breeze if you're going to be a deadbeat dad, no problem. But if you want to be like an actual great parent and a leader of your family and like design your life and be there as a provider and a supporter and a leader, like it's unavoidable. A lot of your time is going to be dedicated to it. Right. And so if you know that going in, it's a little bit easier. Like I knew when I had my daughter, I was like, the rest of the year, I'm even willing to take off. Like I just had no problem with that. Not that I'm necessarily in a position to be able to do that, because I still got to grind. There's still a lot of things that I want to accomplish, a lot of things that I want to achieve. But I had that understanding that I'm going to give myself that grace period. So I think if you go into it knowing what's at stake, and even then you're never going to truly know. Because like you're like, oh, when I have a kid, I'll figure out a schedule, or anybody saying that, forget it. It's impossible, because there will be nights that you do not get an ounce of sleep. That you're waking up every 30 minutes.
And then it ruins the next day.
And then it's like, so if you're like, I'm still going to go to the gym every morning at 6 a.m., forget it. Because some days you're going to not even go to sleep until 8:30 a.m. And then even then you're going to, it's crazy, man. It's as advertised. Because I had this sort of hubris where I'm like, I'll be fine. I can do it. I mean, dudes 50 years ago were storming Normandy. Like, how hard can this be? But it is, man. It's as advertised. It really is just that challenging.
Dude, you're storming Normandy every morning. That's the thing at home.
But
the good thing though about your stuff that I think is every time you put a piece out, it's above that quality bar, so that for you, and this is what we should talk about, is like, if you only do 2 videos a week versus 5, I feel like the audience isn't growing as fast. Of course, I think that's like more of just a mass game, unless the 2 you put out are just bangers. But you're like keeping the stove warm, I guess is the way to think about it, where you might be getting 90% of the value, like of the audience retention value from 2 videos instead of 5. And like maybe for now, that extra time you would have made those 3, that's going to your, but in the future, when she's at daycare or school, the 3 video slot could go to something else, right? Like a different project that could compound. So that's what I want to talk to you about is like the thing you said at the beginning resonated so deeply is we put these artificial time benchmarks on ourselves. Like when I started making content, I was like, I had a blank slate. I could have said 1 video a week. I could have said 1 video an hour. So I was like, let me try to do 1 video a day. I like set that artificial benchmark. No one told me to. I just set that in my mind. And then now, like when I don't hit it, I feel bad. Like I created this self-worth deficit from not hitting this bullshit benchmark. And the thing is, you don't know what the right benchmark is. That's what we should talk about is right now I'm at like 4 to 5 videos a week and I'm spending way too much time. Like I'm not as efficient as you at doing it. I spend like 3 to 4 hours per video. It's like way too long. And if they miss, I'm like, God damn, I spent like a whole day's worth of capacity on something missed. So what do you think is the right, it's for a channel, but like, what's your sense for what's the right amount?
I've been dying to talk about this with you because I think this is such a fascinating conversation that may need like 20 pods just to even like start breaking through. But the quantity versus quality debate, and like you said, there are so many variables. It depends on what kind of creator you are, what your intentions are. Because there are creators out there that their sole intention is just to get more people into their funnel, get more people into their machine. So it's like lead magnet after lead magnet. They don't really care how a piece of content performs because they're not necessarily creating for their audience. They're creating for discovery, for new people to come in, to get sucked into their machine and then sell whatever offer they have in the back end. And then there are some creators that, and by the way, I think this is the right way to do it, but I understand why people don't put in the work because it takes years and years. But there are some creators that are like, no, I am an artist. I am just going to create the dopest shit possible. And what happens is over time, people build so much affinity towards you that they'll just buy whatever you want. So you're actually going to make more money in the long term and it's more lucrative, and your brand is just going to be 100x more paramount if you do it this way. It just takes a lot longer. So some examples that come to mind are like Casey Neistat, Marquez Brownlee. There's a dope creator that I love, Shorts on Instagram. I think he's basically Shorts only, Carl Shakur. And
yeah, he's sick. He's so dope.
It's not like lead magnet after lead magnet. It's not like bullshit, like just trying to get people in the funnel into the machine. It's like they're just creating incredible stuff, and over a long enough period of time, they build so much affinity and such a crazy sort of cult audience that then it's like they're gonna make way more money than they would have taken the short term route, which is, by the way, it's enticing, right? Because it's kind of like easy money. But I guess what I'm trying to say, it really depends on the creator, what your long term goals are, what you like to do, what kind of content you're making. But I want to throw the question back to you because the kind of content that we make, as an example, do you think it's better to just churn out more and more and more, even if you're kind of lowering the quality standard? Or is it better to just like make 1 or 2 incredible videos per week that we're spending like 50 hours on? What is your kind of thought process behind that?
I mean, my gut leans towards the quality over quantity and like dropping the quantity. And one kind of like North Star benchmark or metric that I think of is like, am I excited to make the thing? So like this conversation, I was looking forward to this podcast for like 4 days naturally. And it's because I think I like this medium the most, where you're just like riffing back and forth. So it's like, okay, we could do this probably 2 or 3 times a week and still have that same intensity. If we did it every single day, 7 days a week, we'd probably lose the interest, like the novelty would wear off. So that tells me that the right quantity for the input is like 2 to 3 times a week or whatever we feel inspired to do. So that's for this long form. When I think about the short form, part of me is like, okay, whenever you're inspired, make a video. And there's so much interesting shit happening that if I'm primed and I see something, I'm like, well, I'm inspired, like, and I should make one. But I do think we should probably, like, the thing I've been thinking about is the atomic unit of success in content is share rate to me. So like, how many people out of 100 share the thing you make with a friend? Because if that's how the virality goes, and like really that's the best sign that you made something that resonates with your audience, is that they actually want to put their reputation on sharing it with a friend. So if you just churn and burn high quantity, by nature, I feel like that share rate's going to go down because you won't have put as much intensity and effort and inspiration into the idea. It becomes commoditized. Less people are like deeply connected with it. It doesn't feel new. And so for me, is like with the short form medium, I kind of think less is more. And my behavior doesn't really match that yet because I just put out 5 videos last week and I honestly felt like a robot putting them out. Like I was just like, oh, I was inspired by the things I talked about, like the grok, and I made a video about like what I think the future of technology looks like. I was inspired by those things, but the act of like creating that package and putting it out, I'm like, is this really like new, novel? Like, is this going to cut through? Some of them, when I put them out, I'm not even excited by the time I go to put them out. And so I'm like divorced from the idea of the result. So yeah, I don't know. The problem though is like, if you take that too far and you're just like, I'm an artist, I'm going to make one per week, you can't the machine won't spin fast enough for you to grow. That's the issue, right?
And flops hit a lot harder.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because if you're flopping, but you're putting out 5 a week, one of those is bound to hit, whatever. But if you're going to spend, 2-3 weeks on something and it flops, I think that's a lot more harder to stomach.
So like if you make 5 videos or I make 5 videos, we're basically saying we don't know if any of these are superstar videos. We're hedging because just in case if we were to make one and it flops, we like lost the whole week. We're hedging. So it's kind of like if you don't want to hedge, you should drop the quantity and like go all in on just a couple ideas.
Yeah, dude, so many thoughts coming to mind because, and I'll just try to be as like transparent and vulnerable into my process as possible, right? But there's like, I'm kind of being pulled into 2 different directions. One is like, I could be sort of the news guy and I could just drop a lot of news. I like it a lot less. I actually don't like it. It doesn't, sometimes I wake up in the morning and I feel like this anxiety where I'm like, bro, why am I doing this?
Me too.
I don't love it. But I know if that I leaned into it and I'm putting like 15 pieces of content a week, it's going to hit, my machine's going to grow, my audience is going to grow. I think it just becomes a lot harder to make money on the back end of that. And so part of me, I know that I'm doing this, part of it is for the economic incentive, right? For the financial benefits. Because I do feel like I'm a bit of a hybrid. Like I'm half artist, half like business person.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't just want to create for the love of creating, even though I do love doing that. I understand I'll have to provide for my family and I do have like greater ambitions. And I know that money is a tool and there's a lot of great things that I want to do to kind of like, leave a legacy, push the world forward. So I'm like half and half. So on the other side of that equation is like, I don't want to do anything. I just want to make the dopest possible movies. Like I want to go out there and really just make movies, like hire people and just make incredibly cinematic short pieces of content that's not selling anything. It's just like creating for the love of creating. So I'm trying to find like the sweet spot in the middle. And I think it's a little bit difficult also because I don't have like a set, I have several offers, right? Like I have like a lot of things going on that I can kind of lean, whether it be Tone Studio or Aluna or this new product called Pulse that we got going on, or maybe bring people to this podcast or do numbers for brand deals, whatever. There are several things that I can like offer, but I don't have like this one central strategy yet. Right now, my strategy is just to collect as much data as possible, get as good as I can at making videos. And then I'm in no rush, right? I just want to build my brand equity. I just want to make sure that people trust me and that they know that I'm going to deliver as dope as shit as possible. And so I'm a little like conflicted right now, right? And the other thing and then I want to, I want to like pick your thoughts on this too. But the other thing that I'm thinking of too is right now brand deals. You and I, our inboxes are flooded, right? And these are pretty lucrative deals. These are like, hey, I'll pay you $10K for a short that you syndicate to TikTok, and I'm leaving a lot of this money on the table. And like part of me now, there's like this other anxiety where he's like, is this stupid to do? Like, should I be like, this is incredible that the fact that I can even make 20 or 30K a month just pumping out brand deals. But I'm like, is the long term, does it diminish my brand? If I leave all this money on the table for a year or two, is the long term potential? But I don't know, right? And so I'm trying to reconcile all this stuff in real time because, like I said, I'm still pretty new to being a creator, at least a personal creator. So I want to bring the question over to you. How do you reconcile all this stuff? Like, how do you think of yourself as a brand, and how do you manage the push pull between the artist and the businessman side of you?
Yeah, I mean, this hits so this is like 100% bullseye lock. Like I feel the exact same way. And yeah, it's like this, it's the constant what if game, right? It's like what if I took the brand deal path? Would that dilute my brand equity? The thing I wrote about this week is like, you don't get to play the counterfactual in this game. So like you pick a path, but you don't get to know what happened if you pick the other path unless you fully retreat out and go the other way. So that's what makes it tough. This is, now we're like a unit, in terms of this media brand with the podcast. And like, this is a good like strategy brainstorm for us, because I think this is what I'm thinking. First, you have to set like, what's the financial goal? Like if we were trying to make $1 billion, that's one path. For me, like all I really want is like, I mean, this all I really want. This I want 2 to 8 million in cash flow per year, anywhere in there. I mean, that sounds insane to most people listening, but like 10 years from now, I want 2 to 8 million in cash flow, and I want to be spending as much of my day doing something, ideally all of my day doing something I'm interested in, like that I love to do, like making dope shit. That's it. That's all I want. So for me, like that's kind of, it's good to have that. What's the financial outcome you're going for? So that means like cash flowing businesses, but you can't get there on just brand deals. You can't get the 2 to 8 million just on brand deals unless you're Marquez Brownlee, but it took him like 10 years, of just maybe doing that. So first you have to set the target. I would say, and before I go into it, would you say that target's kind of like similar for you, or you want to bigger out? You want to sell something for like 100 million?
I have more of a long-winded response to that, so maybe I'll let you finish your thought, and then I'll kind of let you know what I'm thinking.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, if I can get to like 2 to 8 million per year in cash flow, and I could run that forever doing something I love, it'd be a dream for me. And so knowing that, I'm basically like, okay, what are the options or like paths to get there? And based on the path, how do you marry that with like what I want to do? So I'm similar to you where like I would love a lot of my time to be spent on like big swing, cool projects, like making movies, making products, making like physical whatever it is, right? But these are like almost like half art, half business. Like you want it to do well, but you're like really taking a swing. That's what I want to spend the majority of my time doing. So what that means is like we need to build a cash flow machine on something else that can basically keep us alive until those big swings hit or don't hit. And so knowing that as the backdrop is helpful, because then it's like, okay, let's focus on building the cash flow machine. It's like, what are the options to build a cash flow machine? I don't think brand deals alone can work, because it's just, you will end up being like a farm of ad content, and that's all you do. And to get to the like 2 to 8 million in cash flow, that's a shit ton of brand deals. So that's not really going to work. You could combine kind of like more passive ads. Like I would say this podcast, when it grows, like 4 years from now, we'll probably be getting like $30,000 per ad placement. And like, if we do 2 episodes a week with 4 ads per episode, that alone could be like close to it. And I don't really view that as a brand deal, because we're already having this conversation. We're just plugging the ad. It's much less like we have to go out and have a net new conversation for the brand deal. So that's kind of like, right now, I'm like, that's a really interesting path where you see a lot of these podcasts don't talk about the numbers. They are making $2 to $5 million in profit with like almost no expenses. So, or revenue with no expenses. So that's another. Then you could take the like some of the things you've tried so far, which is like more of a software, digital product, SaaS. Now, for me, like there's a lot, I would love to do that. I don't have the technical ability myself, so I need to partner with the team. But there's a lot of upfront work and risk and capital spent in to get those to cash flow. So without going like too long-winded, basically the answer is, I want to do dope shit over here that takes a while, that's not going to pay. So I need to build a cash flow engine over here to pay for those things and also pay for my life. That cash flow engine doesn't have to be 2 to 8 million itself, but it has to be most of the way there. So what are the options for that cash flow engine? I'm curious how you...
This episode will go out, I think, when it's live. I wrote about this on my newsletter this week. It's going to probably launch tomorrow morning, which is Tuesday. But it's this idea of, we all know what product market fit is, right? And that's kind of like what every entrepreneur in the world is trying to achieve. I think as a creator, like there's this new idea of product content fit. So we've seen a million people do it, right? It's like the Mr. Beast model, the Nelk Boys model. There's a really dope creator that I follow that I was just DMing with named Alex Costa. You may know him. I'm sure a lot of people may know him, who does like men's fitness, men's skin
fashion
care. He talks about like men's hair, fashion, all this kind of stuff. And so he built a company called Forte Series, because he's like, listen, I need to figure out something that is so organic and so naturally fitting into the content that I'm already putting out that's going to build me enterprise value. And I talk about this a lot. Like every creator should really be aiming to make money while they sleep. Meaning, brand deals are great and they can be incredibly lucrative. I have people that I know that are making 6 figures a month on brand deals, but you're still trading your time for money. And that's not the right formula for long-term wealth creation, right? You got to figure out something that is going to make you money while you sleep, something that's building enterprise value that then you could piece off from your brand and sell for a 5 to 8x multiple on their yearly revenue, or a beta, like depending on a lot of variables, yada, yada, whatever. But when I think of my content, I also want to make this point too. If I just wanted to make like $1 million a year and that's it, and that was my only goal, I would become a farm. I would just batch my content. I would have an info product on the back of that. I would build out my my lead magnet, lead gen, funnel machine, and I would just become this annoying asshole that's just like getting people into my machine, not giving a shit about any of the comments. Just have like my 4 tweets a day, 2 LinkedIn's per day.
All
like
scheduled.
I'd be like one of those guys. Everything like scheduled, everything, and there's nothing wrong with that and I see why people do it. I'm like sometimes enticed. Should I be doing this? Because it's I think it's the path of least resistance in a way. So it's funny, if you want to just become a millionaire with content, it's the path to get there is much different than if you want to do that $5 to $8 million cash flow machine, right? You're not going to be doing that unless you're like the top of the top.
Yep.
You're not going to be doing that likely with info product. And so what I want to do is the same as you. I would love to have that $5 million plus cash flow machine that allows me to just create the stuff. Like that's the dream, right? 5 million in cash flow that allows me to just create the stuff that I love to create anyways, that just like fulfills me, that wakes me up with passion and energy every morning. And that all compounds over time. The audience compounds, the trust that I have with the affinity, blah, blah, blah. That is the dream. And so how do I plan on doing that? That's the thing. Like right now, first of all, I know that you and I are going to do it. Like
it's been decided.
That's going to happen.
Been decided.
It's been decided. I don't know exactly how that looks like, but I have a rough idea. And the rough idea is just to make the best content that I can possible and really just build that affinity with the audience. It's as easy as that. It's building your brand and your brand equity over time. I think I can do that for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I think we can do it together on this podcast, et cetera, da, 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 da. And I know that we'll eventually find that product content fit, that the audience is just going to love and be delight and like just be sharing, and the word of mouth is going to get turbocharged. And I have a few ideas already of how we can do that. But I do know that I'm going to be building shit for the next 5 years, shipping fast, failing fast, until I find the right ideas and the right products that when they hit the market, I think they'll just be incredibly rich in MRR, allowing me to kind of like pursue my creative freedoms. And I know that's a bit convoluted of an answer, but that's kind of how I think.
No, I think about it the same way. And I was going to say, like, why the like content farm info product thing is a bad idea? Because when you see something like dope and like the hairs on the back of your neck stand up and you're just like, this is sick. Mm-hmm. The hairs on the back of your neck are not standing up when you're selling a course for $299 and you're just like churning out content. They just don't. It's like life is about chasing those moments where when someone interacts with something you made or watches something you made and the hair on the back of their neck stands up, that's sick. Like that's what it's all about. So that was one thing I want to say. The other thing is, I feel like if you and I become 2 of the top 10 most trusted people for like what's dope right now in X category, and right now those categories that we care about are like tech, AI, VR, creator, entrepreneurship. We both like fashion, design. Like there's a lot of categories that we both overlap and care about. But like in my head, it's just like, if we become 2 of the most trusted to the user, not to the brands, to the users, we'll win eventually, because we'll just keep swimming in the pool long enough. That trust will keep building long enough where when we launch a product 4 years from now, we'll go from 0 to 2 million in ARR in 2 months, because that trust will convert. It's like we're just like depositing trust coins in the bank to spend later. And I think like in my head, and probably in your head and most people's head, it's like as soon as you get a trust coin, everybody wants to spend the trust, like cash it in and get real money out. Like I have a little bit of trust, cash it in. But I actually think a better path, and honestly a more fun game, is just let's accumulate those trust coins for years, build this huge stack. And then when the opportunity presents itself, like it could be 3 years from now, Apple comes out with a Vision Pro 3, and that's the one that's consumer marketing. And we're the ones who build the software platform that allow Kith and every retail brand to like have their stores online. And the reason we're the ones who built it is because we were on the edges to the whole time. We knew more than anybody else about it. And we were able to attract developer talent to build like that. It could be that, right? And as soon as we launched that, all of a sudden that trust, all the Kith chief product officers who were listening to us for the last 3 years, that trust, that we can cash that in like a very sustainable and trustworthy way. And to me, like I think that's how you build big business. That's how you build the cash flow machine.
Absolutely. I mean, I was listening to, we just followed each other. We haven't had a conversation yet, but on TikTok, the guy named Chris Donnelly, that's what he's been doing. So he just raised, I think at $150 million valuation for his health tech company. And he made a TikTok saying the reason that he was able to do that, and especially in such a, like right now, the climate is pretty dry when it comes to venture capital. But he said he was able to get a meeting with all the top firms because he's creating business content that these VCs are actually consuming on a daily basis. And so I've been seeing that now in a small way where I have a lot of like, I don't want to like drop their names, but a lot of really sort of like known VCs that like hit me up about something that I'll cover, and they'll like, hey, I appreciate your thoughts on this. Can I ask you, like they're trying to get like my temperature on certain things. Like, so the Humane Pin was one of them. So I had a couple of VCs who were actually investors in the Humane Pin, and they wanted to like, we talked back and forth about it. And so it's like you say, like that's going to add up, and eventually we're going to become like these thought leaders in this space, like this tech creator land space. And I mean, I think you're absolutely right. So I want to ask you the question, like who out there, or can you even think of examples that you think have done this right? Like who are, I guess, sort of like your role models that are kind of, that have paved the path that you think, like who's cracked this model?
Well, I think the model of basically like make content in a vertical, build max trust, launch a product, like that model. I think there's a lot of women creators on the like health, wellness, beauty side have done this. So like one that comes to mind is the girl who made Divi. You know what Divi is? The like hair serum.
No.
I'm blanking on her name. My wife follows her like religiously. Her name is, I can find it, but basically she created, she's like one of those like female lifestyle influencers. I think she lives in Texas. She was creating just like normal content about her life and like growing up in her 20s. Then she had kids and became like kind of like family content, which that alone is not really novel. Or her name's Danny Austin. And I think they had her on My First Million, but my wife was talking about her way before that because my wife started buying the Divi. So Divi is basically a all natural hair serum that is like beautifully branded and kind of, it's not just for women, but it's targeted at women who have hair thinning from whatever it is, COVID, right, stress, whatever it could be. But that's actually like a micro trend right now, is a lot of women hair is thinning like way more than it was before. And so it could be a number of things, but this girl had her hair just started falling out one day, and she was like making her content was her life. So she's like making content, was like really embarrassed by it, and like had wigs and was like trying to hide it and stuff. And she was breaking down internally. But the whole time she was like making content before that, just like lifestyle, building an audience, building trust. And then she launches Divi, which I'm sure she was using some like pharmaceutical option before, and then was like, yo, none of these are healthy. Let's launch this hair serum. Her husband was in tech, kind of like I think he was like a product manager type role in tech. So her husband quit his job and was like, all right, I'm going to be operative. And Divi is insane. Like I think I want to say the revenue per year is in the like close to $100 million per year range. It's like a supplement, high margin, recurring revenue. It checks every box. But it's actually like authentic and natural tires. So that's one example. I feel like Alex, I was going to ask you about Alex Costa. Can you talk about Forte? Is Forte a skincare line, or what is Forte?
It's skincare and hair care.
Okay.
For men. Yeah. And he's obviously going to be slowly expanding, and he's going to turn it into like a multi-product empire, right? So I think that's going to be a huge exit for him, 9-figure plus and or whenever, if ever he decides that's the route that he wants to take.
Nelk did this really well. I mean, they pretty much off the clothing line was able to monetize, but now they've done the supplements and they've done like full send everything, and then they launched the podcast off it. I just think the answer is you have to find the content audience fit at first, like you said, and build max trust. Mm-hmm. So like for us, it's going to be builders, creators, entrepreneurs, makers, like people who are interested in startups, basically. I want to build max trust. Yeah, emerging tech
as a bucket.
Exactly. Yeah. And we basically just build max trust with those people, and we'll find the need. Like we will find something that they need, whether it's physical or digital. And I think I kind of fall into this trap, like I said before, of trying to jump the gun in terms of like what businesses can I build on top of this attention. But I think that might be the wrong approach. I think the right approach is like, how do I deepen this attention and wait, play another day later when an opportunity comes. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it now. But the interesting thing, though, the question I have for you is, like, we will be able, you and I as a collective, individually, whatever, will be able to do a lot of things on the way. So, like, I guarantee when we're on episode 20 of this, you and I could launch a fund. Like, we could raise a fund of like 10 to 20 million. That's like one option. We could create a media network, which we'll probably do. We could create a partner network with like a bunch of other creators. And you could go to the list. Like, you and I will very, very quickly be able to do like 5 to 10 things. And it's like, and those will happen in stair step in terms of like, 4 years from now, we could build X, but like even 6 months from now, we could do the fund or whatever. So the question is like, which of those shiny objects are worth us entertaining at all? Or do we just go head down and just go media for a while? Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You know, when I look at the landscape of the top creators, and then, by the way, I want to give two more examples of what you were just talking about. But when I look at this landscape, everybody's been putting in the work for so many years. I think the quickest path to failure as a creator is being in a rush to monetize and cash in that attention for dollars. Because when I look at even Nelk Boys, I think they probably 8, 9, 10 years into the game before they decided to ship their own products. They were very thoughtful about it. They just they could have the seltzer, like they were repping Ronas, man. They were always like, you know, partying, drinking the Rona, the Corona. And in my head, I was like, bro, why are they plugging Corona so much? They should be plugging their own thing. But they didn't rush to do it. They wanted to make sure that the infrastructure was in place. They wanted to make sure that they did it thoughtfully. And every single creator, like really worth a damn, like the top of the top, the greats, this is what they did. Right? Like you were saying, they built that trust machine. They collected these trust coins for years and years and years and years on end. It's the same as in product, right? In product, like the old mantra is like, hey, the easiest part is to monetize. The first part is to get like a really active audience that loves the product, that continues to come back. It's really sticky. They're telling their friends about it. No rush on the monetization, right? That's sort of like the old Silicon Valley kind of process over the last like 20 plus years. And so that's kind of how I think about content as well. Like I'm really not in a rush. Granted, it's, you know, if I was like really kind of struggling to pay my rent and I had to take these brand deals and I had to do these things, I completely understand that as well. But I still have like a little bit of a pocket to afford myself the luxury of, you know, just really kind of building this affinity. And then two other creators that have come to mind, like speaking of badass women creators, my friend JT Barnett, probably his girlfriend, Sammy Clark. Oh my God, what a killer. So she's been creating incredible fitness content, like really building that trust and rapport with the audience. Finally, 5, 10 plus, whatever, however many years in the game, she's built form and she's going to crush. Like this is
crushing.
This is her, is going to have a big exit if she wanted again, or she could this is what she loves and she wants to build it the rest of her life. Maybe she never wants to sell it. It's just like a cash flowing operation for her. Another one that came to mind, and it's funny because we're kind of like competing against her, but Tezza. I don't know if you're familiar with Tezza. And her editing app, I saw in TechCrunch like a few months ago, they're making 30 million plus a year. And Tezza was the same thing. I think just making dope content for like 8 years, supporting yourself off brand deals, of course, why not? Because it fits so seamlessly into her content. And then it's like, okay, it's time to build a product. And I'm doing that now too. I co-founded an app, Tone Studio, with Jack Morris, Gypsy Lust, and we're doing the same thing. And I've seen that subscriber base grow and grow and grow, and they're really dedicated to it now. I think that's going to be maybe not doing Tezza numbers, but it's going to be really valuable. And if they wanted to, they could exit that, piece it off, exit again for a 5 to 8x yearly multiple. And I'm like, this is the model.
That's the model.
This is the model. And all of these people that have been able to crack this model, none of them are new, man. They've all been putting in work. And that just goes back to the thing I always say. There are no overnight successes. There are overnight successes 10 years in the making. And so I am 15 plus years in the game, but 9 or 11 months now as a creator. And so I cannot be in a rush.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way that I think about it. I'm still like, I think this year, next are still very much like data gathering periods.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that's the interesting thing about it is when Jack Morris and all these guys started, there were no like people 10 years ahead that had waited 10 years to monetize there because they were at the forefront. So it's like they didn't get distracted about like, oh, what can we build that will sell for 100 million? Because there was no playbook. So their only option was to put their head down. And I kind of think that was a gift, right? That was a gift that they, of course, when they started, but like they were able to go so long without monetizing because they didn't know anything else. Now, the problem is people today who are starting are looking at them and being like, yo, these guys are making so much money. Like I can do what they do. It's like, yeah, but you don't really understand it. Like under the water of the iceberg is so much of the work that they did and they didn't have an option to not do it. One other thing I was going to say about Sammy Clark. So this is a perfect example of what we were saying. So my wife's been following her. I'm sure your wife follows her. Like every girl I know.
She was just doing her workout yesterday.
Yeah. My wife pays for the thing too. And I was like, she was following her for a while, like 2016, 2015, whatever. And then this is a perfect example of like building the trust coins and then cashing in when the opportunity strikes. So when COVID happened, basically Sammy Clark saw that all these women were at home, couldn't go to the gym, couldn't go to the classes. And so the opportunity was for her to host. Most were free, but like she did some like you pay $20 and do the Zoom thing. And so she had been building those trust coins for so long that when that opportunity presented itself, she could cash it. I think she made a ton just from doing that. And that was the baseline of form. Like, I think that gave her the signal to be like, oh, wow, there are, 4,000 women across the country that are going to pay $20 for one of my classes. Like, imagine if I built this into an app with all these different classes, whatever. And so, yeah, I mean, that is what we're saying is you kind of just have to like stay alive long enough for the opportunity to come. And what you said is the reason people cash in too soon, I think, is because they jump into the creator without any safety net, like financial safety net. Like they jump in, they're more or less broke, or like they have 6 months of expenses. They jump in, they're like, I'm going to make this work. And then when the money runs out, they start making short-term decisions. And so I wonder if you think an advantage or a playbook for a creator is keep your job and start making stuff on the side for a while and kind of like build up that reserve. And once you have the reserve big enough where you can actually go at it for 2 years, 3 years without shortcutting, then go full time. What do you think about that?
It's always funny when you give advice, but you don't follow it. It's like easier to give advice and not follow it. So like my advice is the traditional advice. Don't quit your job until you have, 6 months of savings stocked up, and until your idea is validated, until you really have like that product market fit, right? Until say maybe you're making 60% of your salary and you're like, okay, this is going to work. Let me go all in. But I didn't really follow that advice. Like I've never really taken a salary. The last time I had a salary, well, no, I did for a few months when I was like 26. I did go and work for a startup just because like they were offering a lot of money and equity and the benefits were good. Startup didn't end up working out. But I didn't really kind of take my own advice, right? I love being back against the wall. I just got to make this work. And if I don't make this work, I'm going to go broke. Like that's enough of a motivator. I love that. I love that shit. Yeah, my advice is, have 6 months in the bank. Make sure that your idea is validated. If you've never made a piece of content, if you've never been successful at making content, don't just expect you're going to crack it, because it does take a long, long time, sometimes years and years and years. And you have to have that patience and resilience to stick with it. So yeah, it's hard for me to give advice here because I didn't necessarily follow my own advice.
Yeah, I did keep my job for a while. Like I had a job, I didn't want to. I like grit and bared it. I hated it, but I had a job. I started making content right around the same time you did, like we'll say like September of 2022. And I started, and it really did not work until like December. Like I spent 3 or 4 months of like nothing. And then,
which by the way, that's an outlier.
Yeah, I was lucky that it hit.
Usually it takes years and years. So I don't want anybody listening to be like, oh, it just takes 2 months. I got 2 months.
Yeah,
because that's an outlier.
I was planning on working the job and keeping at it until it worked. So however long that took. But then once it started working, I basically got to the point where I wasn't doing a ton of brand deals, but I kind of wanted to do a few to like test what my market value was. And it got to the point where my market value for the brand deals was worth more than what I was getting paid. And at that point, I was like, okay, do I have enough saved where I can go at this for 3 years? And then I quit. So it's like, and I was the outlier. Like you said, that like it took me 6 months to get to a point where I quit. That is very rare. I'm very blessed for that. But because of that, I don't really even have the skills yet to like make the dopest shit. Like what I'm making is the top of my skills. Like I haven't even learned, I haven't even had the chance to put the reps in to learn. So I'm kind of like a good example of someone who got lucky with a tailwind, but now my skills don't match the attention that I'm getting. And so I'm like busting my ass to try to bridge that skill gap. And that's another benefit of waiting is like, if you really want to do this, the only way you should do it is if you authentically like it. Because if you don't authentically like it, you're not going to have the willpower to stick it out.
It's over.
It's over.
You're going to burn out 100% of the time, no matter what. You got to love it.
So I loved it, but I didn't have the skills. So I was like, all right, I gotta try to build the skills. And I would say that like, I got lucky with some things that hit and my skills were, slower to come up. So I'm still in the like I'm a blue belt or whatever. I don't even know what the belts are, but I'm a low belt.
But I'm perpetually in the trenches forever. I know that until the day that I die, I'll be in the trenches. Just because I have like, again, we'll get into it in another podcast, but I feel like I lost 10 years of my life in my 20s. And so I always have like this chip on my shoulder, I'm behind mentality no matter what. And even if in the next 5 years I get to that point that we talked about where we're $5 to $8 million a year cash flow, we're living super comfortably, loving, I'm always going to have that mentality. Like I'm behind, I need more. I don't know if that's a gift or a curse. I use it as fuel. But that's yet to be determined. But I want to go back. You said something so interesting, man, about like, okay, the class of 2013, 2014, they didn't have that data. They didn't have the people to look out for. It was like a very new game. I feel for people. I understand why creators are in a rush now. I don't actually think it's so much like I got to put food on the table. There is some of that, but I think it's more right now the content that's really working and resonating. And by the way, I think it's a massive bubble, and it's just gonna be like a cringe fest, an eye roll, and people are gonna be trained to skip it soon. But what's working right now is like, here's how I made $50,000.
Yeah.
The process is more important than the product. So what's actually more valuable is not building the SaaS that makes you the money. It's showing other people how you built the SaaS that made it blah, blah, blah. And I see this in content now too, where people are like, why are you posting content without an offer? Why are you posting content without a lead gen? And I'm like, this is so misguided, but I get it because it works, right? It's first of all, like, thank goodness I know the game. Otherwise I'd be like, I'd be so anxious, like consuming this type of content, but I know the game. I know what these people are doing. The better question might be, why is it working now better than it used to? Because I do feel like before it was kind of known, like these people that are, it's like, okay, this is snake oil. Like before it was kind of like here, dude, here's something I've been wrapping my head around. When Ty Lopez came out and did this, everybody was like, this is a scam. But now we have all these Twitter influencers are doing the exact same thing. It's just packaged up a little bit nicer. It's like the branding is nicer, right? But I'm like, so yeah, why is it working now? But that's actually a good question. I'm going to send that one back to you because I don't have any answers at the top of my head.
I mean, my gut is that the resilience of builders has gone down over time because they've been exposed to enough winners. Like we were saying, in 2008, when Uber was created or Airbnb was created, they didn't have a lot of what they had, like Intel or what, like they didn't have IBM. They didn't have a lot of winners to look at to like warp their mind. Yeah. People today have so many winners, so many proof points. It's tough to like I think Alex Hart,
and everybody's a creator.
Exactly. They see even the stuff we post. Like if sometimes I like the stories I post, and I'm not like bullshit. That's like my actual life. But like, I try to zoom out sometimes, and if I'm a normal person watching it, I'm like, damn, that person's life is so good. I'm like, yo, I'm living it. Like it's not as good as you think. Like I'm blessed, but like it's nothing out of the ordinary. But I just think like the way people look at content, they're just overstimulating their mind. And so with builders today, I think,
bro, you nailed it.
That's probably it, right? Because it's like in the Uber days when Travis Kalanick started Uber, maybe there was 5 examples, and he's like, okay, I'm going to use those as a model. I'm not going to be jealous. I'm going to use this as a model. Today, if Travis Kalanick were to start something, there's 5,000 examples, and instead he's like, well, that person's like an idiot. Why are they ahead of me? And like then you start comparing, and it's like, So I think that. I think that the reason why that type of content works is because everybody sees these examples. They don't realize how much work went into it. They're looking for a shortcut. And then the shortcut answer is, oh, well, instead of doing 10 years of work, if I just watch this 3-hour course, I'm going to be 80% of the way there. And I think that's the offers get people because of that. Now, what I think is going to happen, to your point, is like, eventually all of those people are going to either learn better or fall into the trap once or twice, not get where they want to go, and be like, the course thing didn't make sense. And so to me, like, unless you have a perpetual new fire hose of people that are like naive, eventually like the trend is going to play out where these quick hit courses that don't actually build the thing you want to build don't work. So I kind of think we're in this weird wave, and opportunistic entrepreneurs have seen it, where it's like, if I just say I know how to do something even though I don't, and build a course just based on watching YouTube videos, I can make 100,000, 200,000 in a couple months. So that's why I think it works. But a good quote about this is Alex Hormozy said this on a podcast. He's like, when you watch a movie, the Rocky training scene is only 2 minutes. But in reality, Rocky trained for 10 years to be able to do that fight. And a lot of people think the Rocky cutscene is 2 minutes because they're watching people online post about the private jets. Like Justin C is a good example, right? He's posting some dope shit. Like he just built his own Porsche. He's like traveling all over in these luxury cars, whatever. You could look at that and be like, this kid's only 26. Like he doesn't deserve that. But nobody goes back to the catalog, and like he did this for 8 to 10 years. He was grinding for that long to get there. So that, to me, that's why I think these offers work.
That was fascinating, man. No, that was so insightful and introspective. I think you're right. I mean, the comparison game, I want to go back to that because that is, I forget who coined the quote, one of the most famous quotes in the world, but comparison is the thief of joy. Was that Teddy Roosevelt? I forget who said that. But it's so true, man. And social has really exacerbated that because you are comparing your everyday mundane moments to everybody's highlight reel. This year, this last year and a half, I've just met so many people, and it's really opened my eyes, man, to to what I admire also in people. And I think we talked about it before. I admire like a lot of these directors. I admire Karl Shakur way more than I admire somebody making 10 times more than him, creating, you know, like the kind of content we were just talking about. And yeah, man, I've met a lot of very wealthy people, and I'm like, I don't want their lives. I do not admire them. I don't care that they're saying I made $50 million doing this blah 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 this year, and then I look at them and just, I don't admire them. I don't really care. Like it doesn't resonate with me. Where I look at an artist, not necessarily an artist, just like a really cool creative person living such a badass life, and I talk to them and they're fulfilled and they're doing something adventurous every day and they got a great family support system. That I don't exactly know where I'm going with this thought, but it's like, it's so easy to fall into the trap of comparison. But when you really know what's going on behind the scenes, like when you understand the game a little bit better, that starts going away a little bit. So I don't know if it's the same for you, but this comparison trap has been, I'm not invulnerable to it, of course, but I'm a lot more resistant to it. Like it does not affect me nearly as much as it used to, because now I have like this intimate understanding, I guess, of how the world works, how creator land works, how the startup world works. And I guess now having a daughter too, man, has changed a lot of my perspective as well. But I know that was a bit of a messy thought there, but I wanna ask you kind of the same thing. Like, how do you resist this comparison trap, if you do at all?
It's tough.
How do you
I'm a little over the mountain on it as well, luckily. But so this is what I think happens when you start out and you have nothing. And by have nothing, I don't mean like you don't have friends and family, but like you have no traction. Let's say all you want is something that works. And so when everyone you see that has something working is better than you. And so the comparison trap is max. It's like peak amplitude, because you're like, God damn it, every person has figured it out and I haven't. Like, why not, right? The more you get a little bit of taste of what it's like when you have a video hit or you make a little bit of money online, I think that amplitude compresses a lot. And then you get to a point after having done it a while where those receptors just get fried. Like the comparison receptors get fried and it doesn't affect you anymore. So I think like part of it is that just seeing what success looks like you said, meeting some of these people in person, and you're like, what? Like this person is playing the facade extremely well. And then you just like realize that if that person's kind of bullshitting and like this person's bullshitting, then everyone's bullshitting. You just don't feel the comparison. So that's part of it. The other part is like, yeah, I think my brain is just wired differently. Like it's similar to what you're saying. I grew up in the Midwest. We had enough, but we didn't have a lot. And I've got a Lay's potato chip factory on my back. Like the chips on my shoulder just keep, like, it's never going away. And so I love that. That's the best advantage ever, is that I don't care to compare myself, because I can't, having what you have won't take the chip off my shoulder. The only way that I'm going to get a chip off my shoulder is if I win myself. So that helps me not worry that much about the comparison. But there are days where like I see shit come out and I'm like, damn, that's good. Like I wish I came up with that. Like that's natural though, you know? You just have to not let it affect your self-worth at life. That's the key.
100%. How do you, I kind of want to introduce an interesting idea
Let's
here.
do it.
I've been tracking my comments, and it's like 99%, if not 100% positive. And that doesn't make me feel good. Like, I actually think I'd like to be at a 20 to 30% negative or toxic comment clip, because then it means that what I'm doing is of consequence. I don't know if you've ever thought of this, but yeah, man, sometimes I'm like, am I just creating just vapid sort of nonsense? And by the way, it's not, because I love it, right? Like tech, this, that, showing what's good. But sometimes I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's a little more, it comes down to more like, what's the purpose in life? It's a little more of a weird, deeper introspective question. But yeah, sometimes I'm like, if I'm not getting hate, if I'm not getting like 20% negativity on my content, does that mean it's of no consequence? It's just kind of like toyish. I don't know if I articulated that well, but let me know your thoughts on that, and if you've ever had like similar thoughts.
I think like the on polar topics, the closer you get to the middle, the more hate you'll get, because like it can be perceived by both sides as wrong, and so everybody's coming at you. So I find like I feel this too, because most of my content leans optimistic. Same for you, where it's like you see something come out and you're like,
because I am an optimist.
Exactly.
Like,
I don't want to rip a brand, and also I like new stuff. So it's like we're covering new tech. It's like, yo, everything's new. It's cool. It's different. So when you lean optimistic, you're far away from the middle. Like you're almost all the way to the miss side. And so it's like, it's a feeble attempt for a hater to come in and try to trounce it because you didn't even open the window for them to say something. But to your point, the closer you get to the line where you're like, okay, this is cool, but also critical, the more like swarm you get of the feedback. To be honest, like, I think negative comments when they don't come from people I know is kind of funny. Like sometimes I'll, like, early on when I had videos that would go crazy and there'd be like thousands of comments on TikTok, I would just like have a drink and go through and just like bullshit the responses. Like it would just be fun to me. But I will say negative comments from people I respect do humble me. And like, I don't like that feeling. And I usually only get those on Twitter. So like Instagram is for the most part a pretty positive place. I think anytime I get a negative comment, it's just someone being like, hey, you didn't think of this, or hey, it's more like suggestive. TikTok is insane. Like I just post and goes on TikTok. I don't really read them, to be honest. But on Twitter, like those are the people that I want to respect me. That's where they play. So if I post something on Twitter and I get a negative comment, if it's constructive, I'm like, I actually take it to heart. I'm like, okay, this person knows the Kyle. But if it's just like straight hate, then I don't love it. So yeah, I mean, I don't get a lot of negative comments either. And it's a good point. I think it's just because we lean optimistic so much or I don't see them. Maybe the platforms are just do a good job of filtering straight nonsense ones. If you want to be the center of the vortex, though, you got to be closer to the line of like both sides if you want to get, those opinions.
Yeah, no, I think that's well said. I mean, there's two things to unpack there. One, when it comes to negative comments, by the way, I think the biggest mental hurdle, really the biggest hurdle of becoming a creator or like putting anything online is the fear of like what other people may think and what other people may comment, those negative comments. I have like a way to combat this to the point where I do feel like I'm a little invulnerable, and I'll explain. But the other thing that I want to say is like, I believe that everybody has like two basic truths. Everybody wants to express themselves, and everybody wants recognition for their expression. I believe that is inherent to every single human walking the earth today. If somebody disagrees or says that it's not true, it's some sort of defense mechanism, because I just believe that that's embedded into our DNA. And it's sad to me that people don't go out there and express themselves because of fear of what other people may think. That's also very natural. But what I've noticed when it comes to negative comments on the internet, and anybody listening, if you're like affected by negative comments, I want you to think of two things. One is, like you said, Kallaway, it's like sometimes a negative comment may actually just be valuable feedback, and you got to take it to heart. And I've had my fair share of those, but they're usually very easy to identify. I think you probably agree. Whether somebody's just being negative because of some insecurity or whatever, or if somebody's actually trying to leave like a critical piece of feedback, I think they're pretty easy to identify. But I have noticed negative comments on the internet, when you develop an intimate understanding of human psychology, they begin to have less and less impact, because all behaviors on the internet, I think, are pretty much like you can pinpoint there's a reason for that behavior. And so negative comments a lot of the time is just because a person is not satisfied with their own life. Maybe they're envious, they're insecure, they're bitter, blah, 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 whatever. And it manifests as toxicity on the internet. There's these old adages that I think I subscribe to all of them. I think they're all true, where it's like hate never comes from above, the loudest boos are from the cheapest seats, so on and so forth. I think that's all true. And I also just think that anybody doing better than you is not going to take the time out of the day to kind of like admonish you or try to tear you down. So I think, like I said, once you're equipped with that understanding of psychology, they begin to hit a little less hard. I also just think it's par for the course on the internet. The bigger you get, the more toxicity you're going to get. Again, going back to like those deep-rooted psychological issues that I just highlighted. And maybe that's another reason that I almost desire more negative comments, because I think while my comments lean 95, 98+% positive, it just means I'm not that big of a creator yet, right? And
yeah.
So I feel like you can actually track those as a benchmark to how you're doing in a way, and how of consequence your voice is ultimately in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I have more thoughts to that too, but I do think like I want people out there to really, really understand that negative comments are generally, most of the time, a reflection on the person spewing them and their inadequacies and insecurities, etc., more than a reflection on your content. And once you're equipped with that knowledge, I think you become a lot more resilient.
Yeah. I think that also quality smothers negativity. So like the videos that you and I make are pretty high quality in terms of the storytelling, the visuals. Like we try hard to make it high quality. It's really hard for a hater to hate when the quality bar is high. it's easier in someone's mind to like eat on something that's took less time or whatever they tell themselves. So that is because I just picture like the videos we make that don't do well. What that means if they don't do well is it means that the majority of people that saw it didn't think it was good enough to keep watching or didn't share it. That is negative, but they don't post comments about it because I think they look at the quality, they look at the visual of it, as simple as that, and they're just like, this was a good attempt. Or they're like, I really like this person. Like I can't hate on the quality. I just didn't like the message. And so we don't get a lot of that hate versus like Sam Sulek, he's huge, but like I bet he gets a lot of hate because his videos are like a phone duct taped to a tripod that's just straight, no edit. Like I can see how people would justify saying something mean to him. I also think like you and I don't really, I guess this is your point about being vapid. We don't really step too far outside the not only optimism, but conventional topics. Like we haven't really made a political post, or the one I got the most comments on was the FTX thing about Sam Bankman-Fried. And the reason why is because that had political undertones. It had crypto versus not crypto. It had banking. It had all the like check boxes of polarity. Most of the things we talk about aren't that polar. So that's probably why. But
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I guess what I want to trend more towards like later, I guess, in my content career is like, and again, it's, what's the word? It's more existential, like exploring this existentialism. But eventually, like we are going to get to the point, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, whatever, when we're like just really thinking about legacy and the way that we want to help shape the world in our small ways. And I think in order to do that, you have to sort of discuss topics of more consequence, whether that be politics, et cetera. But I guess another thing that here's an example. Like I had a piece of content where I was discussing the rise of, which is an interesting, we should talk about this too, but the rise of like these 24/7 IRL streamers. Have you seen this? And I had a piece of content about this where I'm kind of slamming them because I'm like this. First of all, I'm giving them kudos because it's like, okay, this is reality. Reality TV was a breakthrough idea. You put a bunch of personalities in the room and the producers would piece the story. Now with this IRL 24/7 streaming, it's this evolution of reality TV where you're putting all these personalities because their shows, so to speak, are all joining together. And then their fans, in a way, are the producers because they're the ones piecing the clips together, blasting them with social to kind of tell some semblance of a story. But like in my script, I was also kind of blasting them because I'm like, these guys are all hiding behind bodyguards. Or, you know, like I was kind of insulting them in a way. And I scrapped it because of that. And then I'm like, wait a second, these are like my honest thoughts. Like, should I shield my honest thoughts because I don't want to, you know, rub anybody the wrong way? And I guess that's where I'm getting at, where it's like, sometimes I do have a strong opinion about the thing that I'm covering, but I don't want to slam it, nor do I want to praise it too hard just because I don't want to ruffle any feathers. And I'm like, wait a second, I should be doing that.
Well, the question is, I think the most important thing is adding the trust coins to the bank. Like that's the most important. So it's like, do you get net more trust coins because people respect that you had an authentic opinion, or does it lose you coins because you are too polar? Which I would say you and I both bias towards. We're afraid it's going to lose us coins, so we don't post it. Like, yeah, I'm not in a place where I feel like I can just let a raw opinion fly. Like if I'm critical on a product, I just won't make the video because in my head, which is sad, this is the truth. I'm like,
but is that counterintuitive to what you're saying? Because if it's all about the trust coin, if you're not letting something fly because of a strategic,
that is counter.
Because that's more strategy than it is authenticity.
It is counter.
That's kind of interesting, right? Like that counterintuitive.
I think the people that are trusted most on the internet, like MKBHD, for example, he's very highly trusted for tech review. I'd say probably the most highly trusted. Why is that? I've watched videos where he's not optimistic at all on like an Apple product, where he doesn't rip it to the point of where he's like, I hate Apple, but he's like 2 degrees away from that, where he's saying, this is a miss, this is a flop. I don't see why, anyone would buy this. Like he's raw. And yet Apple still invites him to his events. He still gets brand deals. So he's found a nuanced way to be extremely raw about his thoughts either way, positive or negative. And the brands don't, because I think he delivers his message in such like a pure, innocent delivery mechanism. I feel like I'm a little bit too like blunt and like sarcastic, where if I scripted something negative, it would come off like I was an asshole. But you're right. Like maybe people would trust me more if I wasn't always optimistic. Like that's a good point.
Well, I guess you're right. Maybe there is just a right delivery for it. Because do you know Dr. Disrespect?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
He's just like an entertainer personality that I love. And when he doesn't like something, he's like brash about it. Like, this game fucking sucks. Call of Duty's for 80-year-old men. The developers are all pussies. Like, oh, maybe you want to edit this out.
Yeah.
And so what happened was Call of Duty banned him from all their events and never invited him to anything and never give him any brand deals. And so he probably lost millions of dollars worth of brand deals. But, at the same time, maybe that helps him because like people are like, wait, Doc's not afraid to spew it. Maybe that's so there is strategy behind. I'm always reconciling between the two, like the strategy versus authenticity. Like, is there a balance? Do you want to lean one way or the other? And I guess like anything else in creator land, man, it really just depends on who you are, what kind of content you're making, etc.
I think you're right that, well, potentially the reason why the bigger you get, the more hate you get, is because the bigger you get, the more likely you are to feel safe enough, uncancelable enough to be more provocative. Like when you're on the come up, you're kind of like, I'll do everything. Yeah, like Nelk, exactly. They were
uncancelable.
Exactly. When you're on the come up, you don't really want you don't want to ruffle too many feathers because you don't know what's going to be the catalyst to drive you. But once you're big, you're like, there is no way I'm coming down. So like, I might as well be raw. That might be a thing as well. I wanted to ask you about the Meta event. So you went to, I guess you could talk about it. You got invited to like a Meta event. You were in New York for a while. Like talk about what that was. And like, I have a bunch of questions off that.
First of all, Meta is really dope. Like I'm actually loving everything coming out of Meta. I think they're making really thoughtful moves. I think Zuck is a killer. It's somebody I'll never bet against. But as far as like the actual Instagram Meta team, like I've befriended so many people in the comms team, innovations teams, creator teams, etc. And they're making a real concerted effort to like really kind of back and evangelize and celebrate the creators, which I haven't seen from Instagram before. I've seen it mostly from YouTube. I think YouTube is the best at this. But now like Meta is really making moves to kind of push their creators. And I think we talked about it last episode where I do think there is now this new crop of creators that'll be short form only, Instagram, TikTok only, that may reap the same sort of benefits as long form YouTube only, which is an interesting thing to track. But so just because I've been making a lot of content around some of the stuff Meta is really passionate about right now, AI, mixed reality, etc., I've had access. They've been inviting me to a lot of events, hooking up with products. So they invited me to come to the New York offices on this last Thursday. It was a Reality Labs team happy hour, and they were demoing to select creators the new Quest 3. They hooked us up with a pair of Meta Ray-Bans. Hold on, let me grab them.
The Meta Ray-Bans are so dope. I think
Dude, I want to talk to you.
Let's talk about it.
They're fucking killer. But yeah, it was a great event. And again, man, I'm just really happy with everything that Meta's doing. And I'm also just like transparently enough, just trying to build a lot of goodwill with them because I do think there's my content and the stuff that you and I want to build, et cetera. I think there's a lot of great synergy with Meta. But bro, these glasses are the real deal. Like they are the real deal.
You feel like they wouldn't be, right? You saw like the first Snapchat spectacles were pretty shitty. And like you feel like these, it's not going to be that. These are sick. Like these are dope.
They're sick. And I'm not getting paid for this. I got these for free. That's about it. Meta didn't pay, I made a piece of content just out of goodwill just because I thought they were cool. I'm not getting paid, but dude, they're crazy. The quality is surprisingly good. The audio that comes out of these speakers right here, like there's so much tech in these pieces of glasses. The audio is so unbelievably crisp.
Like the recording audio when you talk
sounds
to
like
me?
Listening to like,
listening.
Sorry, the speaker audio. So it sounds like something coming out of like Bose or like high-end speakers. But the crazy thing about it, I guess just the way that the sound travels, is that if you're standing 2 feet away from me, you're going to be able to barely hear what's
It's wild. Is it shooting it straight
down?
Hear
loud and clear. So it's great because that was my worry. I was like, I'd always still wear AirPods. I don't want anybody hearing what's going on. But it doesn't really happen like that unless you're like in a completely pin drop quiet setting. And then the other thing, the audio recording, the sound recording is also unbelievably crisp. And I'm like, yo, this is amazing. Granted, there's some things I don't like, 1 minute recording limits.
Oh, that's
the battery life actually kind of dies pretty quick, like stuff like that. But again, this is first iteration, fifth iteration with multimodal AI integrated, maybe mixed reality enabled. I think these are, they're not like the iPhone killer as all these AI wearables are trying to get to, but they're a very good alternative / complement. And I'm so bullish on these, man. And it's also $100 more than just buying the regular sunglasses. So it's kind of a good deal.
Do they have the AI chat? Like you can say like, hey, Meta, and is it just to record though? There's no search or anything?
No, they have AI. They have AI capabilities integrated. They don't have the visual context. So eventually when they have the multimodal AI, like I'll be able to look at something and ask it, what am I looking at? What is this store? What's the menu, et cetera. But they do have AI integration. It's powered by the network on your iPhone, and it's Llama. It's powered by Llama, which is like great open source software. I don't know, super bullish.
I'm very
We're not
bullish
getting
on
paid.
these.
This is not
I bought
this is not a
them.
spot, but I
So
am bullish.
not only are we not getting paid, I paid for the glasses. So I'm gonna get them probably in a month. But this is my thought about it.
What colorway?
So I think I need to check again. But the one I wanted to get was the transition, because when you're outside,
Yes.
it'll look like sunglasses. But when I'm going inside, I want to be able to record stuff inside it, but not be wearing sunglasses, like not be able to see. So I think I ordered the transition lenses, hopefully.
Sick. I'm going to trade mine in for those, or sell this and buy those, because I like that.
So the reason why I was so excited about them, like the video quality coming out of them is pretty good, right? It's 12 megapixels, but is it pretty sharp? Like what would he?
Really good. I actually compared it to like the iPhone. Obviously, like iPhone's going to be a lot better in low light, et cetera, but it's not that dramatic of a just straight out the camera.
Yeah.
Right. Like iPhone, there's more data, so you can edit it a little better. Obviously, this is going to be more destructive, kind of when you edit them. But just for like casual stories, bro,
sick.
Why wouldn't you go?
So this is what I was thinking is like when I put together I hate calling it like a camera kit, but like I'm trying to think, okay, how can I capture the things that I'm doing in the most lightweight way? Like I have a DSLR, I'm shooting some DSLR. I just got an FX3 so that I can record like a little bit better. I mean, I had an E7 III. That was the only camera that I had. So I was like, I gotta get the.
Are you on it right now? What camera are you?
No, this is just the A7 III, but it's just cam linked into the computer. It's still like, of course, really sharp for this, but
yeah, it's
great, I want to be able to shoot the S-Log. This doesn't even have S-Log 3, so I can't even color grade on this in a good way. So, or I don't know how, but I'm not that good at it. So with the FX3, I'll have S-Log 3, and I think it just gives me a lot more options. But I don't want to carry the FX3 with interchangeable lenses. Like I don't want to travel with that. So when I think about what are the things that you need that I want to create the dopest content, all you need is a phone. Like I just got the iPhone 15. I haven't even used the S-Log yet, or the whatever D-Log, whatever they call it. The iPhone 15, those Meta glasses give you like sick POV. And then I've been shooting photos on the Fuji X100V, which I'm obsessed with this camera. Like, I don't know if you've seen the stories I've been posting, but just straight out of the Fuji with one-click preset in Lightroom, it gives it a little bit more of like the nostalgic look versus an iPhone photo, which looks different than everyone else's. Mm-hmm. That's it. That's all I need. Like, I have the Mavic 3 or the Mavic 3 Air Pro, like the really small one. So if you take those four things, you've got the smallest drone with sick quality. Your phone is like just as good as a DSLR. I have a stills camera that you could probably replicate with the phone. And then you get those POV on your face. I mean, what more do you need like to create dope shit? I feel like it's sick how small the form factor.
Yeah, this is perfect for like casual stories or like POV shots in like a greater piece of content. This is not going to replace like an iPhone if I'm going to film something that I wanted to like really be top quality. But yeah, man, for stories or just for fun things, like I can think of maybe I'm doing something in my studio and I have like a quick POV, like a 1-second shot as that piece of content. That's really dope. And also just the convenience. Like you're walking around town, if you see something you like, something that's dope, instead of pulling your phone out, you just click a quick button. And if you don't have AirPods, these can also, sort of substitute for those as well. Like it caught me by surprise, actually. When I was in New York, I didn't realize they announced my phone calls and I didn't have my AirPods on me. And all of a sudden I started hearing my phone. And I'm like, yo, how? Like for a second I was really confused. Like, where's this going? And then I realized, okay, the glasses. But yeah, they fit certain specific use cases. I don't think it's going to like replace permanently any camera device yet. I just think, again, if you like Ray-Bans and how they look anyways, for an extra $100, you can have that functionality on you with the AI assistant.
That's dope.
I just think it's.
I got an idea for you. So, or like a little thought provoker. So basically, Barstool, how Barstool basically revolutionized sports media in a way that people hadn't really seen before. Oh, yeah. So you gotta have like, for sports, you have like Sports Center, which is like super proper, buttoned up, high production. You have personalities, but a lot of it's like, let me tell you what happened. Then you have Barstool, which is kind of like a group of misfits that talk about sports and like are hilarious, right? So those are like the polar sides of sports media. And what I was thinking is, why don't really either of those exist for, you could call it tech, startup, entrepreneurship? Neither of those exist. You don't have like a merry band of characters that are like funny and are talking about shit in like a sarcastic way. But you also don't have like a serious, maybe Cheddar was trying to do this, but I never really loved Cheddar. You don't really have a serious approach to it. So I wonder what you think about that. And also, there's nothing stopping like me and you from becoming, like, if we were physically in the same place, we could probably for like $10,000 set up a studio where you and I became, we could pick which way, Barstool or SportsCenter, but like we became that. That's how wide open this is. So I wonder your thoughts of like why that model hasn't been, copied over to tech or startups or whatever category.
Yeah, I had that similar thought, like when I started creating content more like around news and like a small assessment. And I think somebody tweeted it to me. It was like, oh, RP Nixon's making like Sports Center content for tech. And I was like, that's pretty dope. And that's when I tried out the like Sports Center style rundown. And I was gonna, and then, but again, man, it goes back to like my earlier point. Do I want to be like a news rundown creator? Or do I want to be like more of a storyteller? But yeah, no, it's an opportunity. But like, that's the thing. This is why these conversations and like live creative brainstorms are so useful. And I think so many people are going to find value out of them because it's like, we can go so many directions. I think knowing how to create content that is retentive, that is interesting to people, that is shareable, I think it's a superpower. And like, there are so many ways that you can take that. And I've thought about it a lot. I don't know, like, how do we want to divvy up our times? I've thought about the studio model a lot. I want to build a studio with, 2 talking head setups, 2 podcast setups, and just like a bunch of creators in there. Maybe it's even membership based that are coming in. They can use it at all times. Maybe you're selling it by the hour, but like otherwise that's kind of how it's paying for itself. I'm going to bring that again back to you. Sorry to like not answering your questions and throw them back to you, but how do you think about that? Because I've been thinking about it a lot. I just don't know where I want to.
We should definitely experiment with it because I think, so like one option for getting, and like some of it's tech news, but honestly it's more just like what's going on in tech that not necessarily news based, but like interesting. One way is kind of what we're doing, which is it's just one of us in our video. It's like just me or just you talking for 60 seconds, like explaining. And that's like compelling, but that's because the baseline is so low. Like what we're doing is compelling, but it's not amazing. I think what would be even more amazing, imagine like that format, but in like 3 to 4 minute bite-sized chunks with both of us, where we like, I don't, kind of like Weekend Update, but like not as cheesy, where it's like you introduce the topic, but then we do like one of the, like what you would do on a podcast, but it's like quicker, and you write it so that it's like a little bit more scripted and quicker and snappier, but it's like you introduce it, you throw it to me, I say something, we go back and forth a couple of times, give a funny take, and then off. And like it's just these little pockets of like the humane pin. We could have made the most hilarious like 4-minute skit about that, but also been really informative about like what it is, what we think the pros and cons are. Instead, like we both made kind of just like, because of the time constraint of the shorts, we just made like a here's what's happening and like, will it work? Yes or no, right? Like it felt a little, I think the thing you were saying earlier, which is resonating with me too, is the tech news takes that we're giving feel very vanilla because the form factor is too limiting and it's not expansive enough to actually give a real take. So that's wide open. I mean, one way to do it is in this podcast format. Like we could have a podcast that's just rundown, we just fire topics, and then you clip those. So that's kind of like how I guess Barstool does it today with the rundown. But I think there's room there. Like there's room to be a little bit more compelling, where I don't want to say we become must-see TV, but like anybody who's a builder is like, kind of want to see what these guys think about. That's what I want to get.
Right. Yeah. I would love that. I think, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I think the pinnacle almost for any creator is to, like Joe Rogan. You know what I love about Joe Rogan is like people want his opinion on anything, on everything, even if he's not necessarily the expert. They just love how he synthesizes it, how he thinks about it, and also, it's also alluring because he's listened to by so many people that it's important to get his take because he moves markets, right? Like he creates sentiment. He can build narratives. So it's also like, it's alluring to understand what he thinks about something because you want to know whether he's going to validate your opinion on it or reject it. I think that's interesting as well. But yeah, man, I'd love to try because I'm all about trying new formats. Like I love the internet. Like part of what content is experimenting with new formats and seeing what hits, what doesn't. And if it hits, like you keep allocating kind of resources to it. And there's so many incredible creators that have like, part of what will separate you from the pack as a creator is cracking a new formula, a new format. And so I'd be willing to try just because I love that. Like, I'm like, I love nerding.
A way to do it remote is I got to dial my lighting setup where it's similar to yours, but we both use a green screen and we record ideally like in a podcast format so that you get the timing and the bounce off, but it's green screen both, and then you can edit us both in the room together, basically the same backdrop where it looks the same. That's one option. You could also do it where it's just like flipping back and forth. But I was going to say the reason why, this is the most important point. The reason why Joe Rogan won is because he's a practitioner of the shit he talks about. That's why. So it's like you and I are talking about creator shit without building businesses. And the reason it's going to work and this is going to be big is because we are creators and talking about businesses. It goes back to the point we were talking about before is a lot of people are selling courses on shit they don't do. So it's like they're making content on stuff they're not a practitioner in. The reason why you love Joe Rogan, he is an MMA black belt. He does do archery. He does hunt. He does he does all these things. He is a comedian. Like that's why you like him. And it's not even as direct as like I trust this guy because he is, but he has contextual depth in what he talks about because he does it every day. That's why like a lot of the podcasts that you listen to are just talking heads posturing about a topic they would like to be a practitioner in, but they aren't. They make money from talking. I think we've got something special here because we are the practitioner, and both of us don't just want to be the top. We want to be the practitioner because that's where the juice is.
And we love it. Like another like Joe Rogan is such a case study because, again, what we were talking about earlier, he just spent the first 10 years just because he loved it. And he was naturally curious, and he had people on that he wanted to pick their brain and just like learn more about. And he was talking about crazy shit. And like Joe Rogan, he'll talk about, MMA, and then the next breath he'll talk about hunting. Then the next thing he'll talk about aliens. And like, it just made sense because he loved it. None of it was forced. I guarantee you if Rogan went back and he was just like, what's the biggest guest we can get? What's the biggest guest we can get? And that was his North Star, it would not be nearly as effective. But what I love about Rogan is he'll get people that are like, nobody really knows who they are, or like, they're kind of not as big. They're not like big names. They're not going to move the needle in any way, shape, or form. But he'd rather talk to those people than like the biggest, most viral name he can get at that moment. He does not care about those views, and that's why he wins. It's the same way in business. It's this old adage where it's like, if you're not chasing the money, you're going to make the money, right? If you're just passionate about solving a problem, that's how you're going to make money. And so it's like all these what do you call them? These like little paradoxes, right? And it's the same with Joe Rogan, and I love it. That's why
I feel like we could do 100 episodes just me and you, but it'll be really fun when we bring in like homies that are also practitioners in various things, and then we just chop it up. That's what we were talking about off camera, is just
this same style
exactly
with just somebody else.
Exactly.
It's really dope that we love. Instead of like, what's your life story? How did you come?
The worst.
Dude, those are like a dime a dozen in the soul.
And if you want to know somebody's life story, you can go find it. But we're gonna bring like sick people on and just chop it up like this. It's gonna be dope.
You know what? You just give me an idea. Like this could be this. Okay, so imagine this. So it's like you introduce an idea, and then it's like 4 of us, and we can use Instagram because now on Instagram you can collab post with like 4 different people, and everybody gives like a 10-second opinion.
Yeah,
or
so
15-second opinion. Like the humane pin just dropped. Like you know how I guess SportsCenter kind of did this, where they have like different analysts and everybody gives their opinion. So it's maybe less debate, or maybe it can be written so we can include some fun like banter and debate. But imagine like humane pin just dropped. Kallaway, what do you think? You give 15 seconds. Roberto, what do you think? I don't know. Jeff, what do you think? Grateful, what do you think? Whoever might be on that panel, and like we just fired off. 15 seconds. What do y'all think?
That's like I'm down to try all these different formats because I think there's so much. The canvas is wide, and most people are just doing the same thing because they haven't experimented. Like, what's this show on ESPN that's not Partner? What's the one with that Tony Reality hosts with the 4 people and they get points?
Oh,
it's not Pardon the Interruption. It's
I know what you're talking about.
Whatever. But that if you're listening and you know that show, it's basically like Around the Horn. So like maybe? you could edit it so it's like the 4 of us are up at the top like always. And then the person who's talking becomes like the bottom 3/4. That's sick.
Dude,
that's cool.
Let's try it. Imagine this. Humane Pin just came out. What do you think? And like one person, maybe one person's like, I actually love this. This is gonna be the future. And the next person's like, yo, this is the most pointless shit I've ever seen in my life. And also that would spur more conversation. And I think that AVD, just from a strategy point of view, is maybe we can have like the most abrasive, or like the traditionally most abrasive person come at the end, just in case, like that watch time. But that's actually exciting, man.
A good way to do the format would be you have like the host, and then you have a few people at the top, and the host is like introduces it's the hook, but like it introduced the topic, and like they're like quarterbacking to the people. That's how you transition it, where it's like smooth. That's kind of sick. I really like that. We should try that.
That is sick. And it's like 15 seconds like rehearsed where you're not like, well, I think it's like, and we can have it written and prepared so like somebody can riff off of you. So like you do one point and I'm like, and I come in, I'm like, Kallaway, that's insane.
Yeah,
Bro.
exactly.
Like
and it's just cutting back and forth.
Like, this is you know,
That'd
like
be sick.
that would be hilarious.
That's really cool.
Ooh, if we find a way to like, if we can find a way to produce that like systematically to where we can
a way to do it,
we should try it.
a way to do the
try it.
process
Now
would be we just have the 4 people come on like a podcast format like this, and we have the topics. We have the topics. We send the topics out before the podcast. Everybody like writes their take about it. Then we have one of these podcast situations. We just do each one, like record all 4 at the same time, and then we just have somebody cut it up. And I think that would work really well. Like so, this is
another way could just be a script. So it's like, okay, you write your take, and then I'll riff off your take, and then like the third person, and we can always be switching up the order. Or it could just be 1 and 2. It doesn't even have to be 3, 4, multiple. But that is a format that's
super fresh
that nobody's done. And now that we've put it out there, maybe some people listening are gonna. So don't.
So
that's
so that's a good example of a bigger point, which is there's a lot of formats in legacy media that can be teleported over in a new way in shorts or in whatever YouTube that haven't been. So like, for example, what's really popular in legacy media? Game shows. Nobody's really done a game show on shorts. Like it's kind of be chaotic to edit and produce, but like that's one example. Another is that's a good one that actually worked is, have you seen the updating on TikTok? That dude who does the updating. So it's basically like a dating show in New York, but basically they make TikToks and they bring up, it's like either a girl or a guy, one of them is blindfolded, the other one's not. Or they both start out blindfolded, and then he asks them questions about what their type is, whatever. One of them takes the blindfold off, and then the other one's like, oh, describe them for me, and like it's just this whole dating experience. And then the second person takes their blindfold off, and they're like, do you want to go out with this person, yes or no? A lot of times they say no, and then the whole crowd is like, oh shit, and then they bring someone from the crowd who. So it's basically The Bachelor on TV transformed for shorts, so quicker cuts. It's a good example of like, if you go mining for formats that are successful on long form television, there's so much room. And like this would be what we're describing is a good example.
Interesting. So an abridged, faster paced, maybe even more like salacious around the horn. And we're like like the banter needs to be like, we're really kind of like ripping each other, but like in a fun way, sort of roasting each other. Sometimes like, I think that'd be fun because there would have to be a dichotomy. There'd have to be debate.
You need like jokes, and you need like the one character who's always like off the wall. Like you want to see what they say.
Dude, let's riff on this because I think it's like you and I could be like the main ones, and then we can always have like extra 2 people. And once we do it successfully, then it's very easy to do. Like people understand like what we're looking for. It's like, hey, we need you to record 15 seconds. Or like let's write I don't know. I think
it has to either be scripted or you record it together. Otherwise, like you won't get the reaction parts, because then it would just be like independent takes that you try to stitch.
Let's script it.
You basically just write it like a little comedy short, basically, or whatever the length.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's and by the way, my thing is always you want to educate, you want to inspire, you want to entertain. If you can do all 3, you have a home run. That's doing all 3 because you're educating while entertaining, and I think it'll be inspirational to people as well.
Yeah, that's sick. All right, let's try that for sure. You got anything else you want to cover on this pod, or should we wrap it?
Yeah, man. No, I think we can wrap it. This was good, dude. This is gonna work. Putting it out.
That format we just did.
Is, these creative sessions. This format that we just did, and like I said, we'll probably try to do 2 a week. I think we should aim for 1 a week, just you and I, and then another week.
Yeah, I'm down.
On a guest. And for anybody listening, it's not going to be, hey, what are you plugging? What's your story? Here's 10 questions for you to answer. No, it's going to be like this. It's just going to be another homie on with us, riffing about stuff that we're passionate about, talking about what's going on. And
hell yeah.
I think that's
if you like creative brainstorms, bingo. That's all we'll do. Sick. Weekends. All right. That's the pod.